Hi, everyone. In a world where capital has kind of taken over our lives, where numbers matter, we often forget that we are human beings. We breathe, we feel, we have emotions. We kind of think that we are robots. Hence, we don't sit and just reflect on our lives. And that's why it's important that today I've decided to tell my story. Because I know that when I start being real about who I am, I'm able to give permission to those who are struggling with being real. I've received a lot of permission today from this room, just listen to amazing stories. Because sometimes you just have to be affirmed by another person's story. It was late December 2015. I walked over to the mirror. I looked at myself. I took a very good look at myself. 20 kilos heavier, a face smothered with acne, teeth missing, an empty gaze that when I looked into my eyes, all I saw was emptiness. I turned around. I walked to my bed. And I decided to crawl and cuddle myself up in a fetal position. And for the first time in a very, very long time, I allowed myself to feel something that I had been in denial about for a very, very long time. So sitting there in a fetal position, just yearning for that maternalistic touch. Because, when I was in the womb, life was amazing, and now I'm adulting. Nobody warned me about adulting. I started to cry. A gush of tears splashed out of my eyes. And I started to cry. How did you get here, Malebo? How did you get here? A lot of people who are my audience, if they look at me, they'll be like, how? Malebo, you on the floor, crying, lioness, superwoman. It's unheard of. We as women have a very complex relationship with ourselves, There's a very thin line between who we want to be and who society expects us to be. If you look at the history of what it means to be a woman, you will know that women's bodies have always been marginalized bodies. A woman has never truly belonged to herself. She's either just belonged to her family, she belonged to society, she belonged to her husband. That is why some men have the audacity to write books telling women how to think and how to act. And some women will write books on how to be a fascinating woman. Because you don't have the ability to determine who you want to be for yourself. So you find yourself in a conundrum. On one side, you're marginalized. Society, there's lots of expectation of what it means to be a woman. When you need to get married, when you must have children, how you need to address society, how you need to behave. On another side, looking at our democracy, there's lots of opportunities for women to be influential in the economic space, political space, to be influential in policy making. With this new slayage language, slay us, girl. And it happens to me all the time, Twitter and Instagram, when they put up a slayer, and the slayer has traveled 16 continents and has done all these great things. So you feel pressured. that I need to be part of this development, and I need to slay, I need to have magic. And then they remind you, as a woman, God, I need you to take a very good look at me, and then look at that rock. A rock is cold, it's hard, it's lifeless, it's just there. And here I am, as a woman, I'm being likened to a bowler, to a rock. I ask myself, what have we deserved and what have we done to a point that we are likened to rocks? Umbokoto! And my favorite, Mosadi tshwara thipa ka bokgaleng. A woman holds a knife by its sharp end. And I look at my beautiful hands. And I'd be like, may I not be that woman who is forced to hold a knife by its sharp end. This is a very complex relationship that we have with ourselves as women. And then society packages this beautiful woman, and they call it balance, right? This conundrum that I'm talking about, they call it balance. You can be an amazing wife and a mother and still rock it as an entrepreneur, as a businesswoman. They call it having it all, being everything to everyone. You wake up in the morning, let's say you're married, you kiss your husband good morning, you fix lunch for your children to go to school, you wake them up, you make sure that they get bathed. Your husband only wants you to iron the shirt because you know how to make that line. You iron that shirt. You have to shower. After showering, you have to make sure that your children get to school. Either you drop them off or there's transport. Then you rush because your first meeting is at 7 o'clock. And you don't have time to read emails. Your meeting's at 7. After 7, there's a meeting at 8. And there's a very important meeting at 2 o'clock. And then the crash phones and says your child is sick. You tell your boss, oh, I have to rush to pick up my child. I can't make this meeting. And your boss said, when you took this position, you knew what it entailed. This is so unprofessional. You try and phone this babysitter, is nowhere to be located. So unfortunately, you have to say, I can't attend the meeting. I am going to get my child. You get your child to the doctor. After the doctor, you go home. Hey, you need to cook. This time your child is crying because the child is sick. And then the other child comes from school, and you have to undress them, put them in a bath, still make sure that the pots are cooking, put dinner on the table, feed. And when you're about to sleep, that husband goes, Phew. Sounds exhausting, doesn't it? And some might be like, Malebo, you're exaggerating, there's no such thing. But really, there are people who are living that life. Because why? Balance. Having it all. Everything for everyone. When I found myself on that floor, December 2015, I realized that I had been living a life that is trying to be everything to everyone. From the age of 10, I was that young person who started community work. At the age of 10, I was counseling people. While my peers are running around outside, I am counseling people. Everything around my life was centered around helping people. When I was in corporate, I remember that I didn't have a lot of time for community work. And one leadership coach said to me, if you're not impacting people, you're being a parasite. And I said, I do not want to be a parasite, so help me God. So I resigned, and I lived for people. I ran a counseling organization. I ran a mentorship organization for women, for young boys, for young girls. I did a prison research study where I worked with inmates. I was a speaker, meaning every single weekend I was speaking. I worked with the Department of Education, and I still studied. And I still had a day job at Facebook because I'm that notorious Facebooker. And people would say to me, Malebo, when do you sleep? And I'd be like, I'll only sleep when I'm dead. Audre Lorde says, caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. When I woke up the next day after my pool of tears, I phoned a friend of mine because I wanted to reach out. I cried and he said to me, Malebo, that's so unlike you. Snap out of it. You're strong. You're a lioness. And I nearly fell into that trap. Then I decided that I will no longer put my body under pressure, because a lot of women today are dying because of stress-related diseases, because of pressure, because of all sorts of things that we carry. And that is when I decided that in order for me to be effective in society as a policymaker, in politics, I then needed to start to put myself first. And the reason Audre Lorde says self-care is a form of warfare is because if you're a marginalized body that is meant to be last and put everyone first, the minute you put yourself first, you are messing up status quo. Because why? When you put yourself first, I'm sure some of you are sitting there and say, hey, dinner must be ready now, my children, hey, my husband, if he doesn't find me at home, because we're so socialized to put others first. The minute you put yourself first, you are messing things up. You are saying that I am enough. And so my challenge for us today is that if we want to be effective citizens who are truly impacting the economy, policy, politics, it is important to put ourselves first. It is important to say that I have to choose what I want to be and not what society has put out me to be. It is time that we become the women that we want to be. Thank you very much.